No, it's not.
All right, hello. We are live. I think it's all working. Hopefully that live chat should now be working. Comments are still disabled because, I don't know, it's whatever Google does with their Hangouts now. Anyway, I have with me, of course, I'm Miranda with Wargamergirl. I've got Kris Bello with Way of the Brush, as well as Adam with Tabletop Minions. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Anyway, say hello, gentlemen. Gosh. All right, and today on our Cinematic Wargamers, we're going to focus in a little, and we're going to talk about specifically JJ Abrams. Obviously, he's very popular right now because of the new Star Wars movie, which I'll be seeing later tonight. And but prior to that, he did the Star Trek movies. He's done the God Super 8. He's written a ton of stuff. You guys are pretty familiar with him, correct?
Yeah, he did one of my favorite Mission Impossibles episodes.
Did you like Mission Impossible 3?
Yeah.
I thought that movie was ridiculous. That's the one with the helicopter chase scene, right? Through like
yeah, well, I mean, all the Mission Impossibles are all ridiculous. Every single one is ridiculous.
There's ways you take ridiculous, though. And I remember watching that movie with my dad, and he had never seen any of the Mission Impossible movies. And I think he was helping me with some home improvement project, and so we sat and watched it. And every couple of minutes, you could just like punctuate the movie by saying, "'Cause he's that good." I think he had one scene where he had like one bullet left in his like automatic machine gun, and you know, he's like, "That's all I need." And we're like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, he's that good. I mean, come on, Tom Cruise, for God's sake.
Where they brought Simon Pegg in, I was all on board because they took it to a much more interesting level where it's like he's not like they're all that good, but I don't know, he wasn't like weird demigod that he was in 3. I don't know. It was weird. I really liked 1 and 2, but 3 I couldn't accept it.
Is 3 the one that started with Carrie Russell?
Yeah.
Okay, and then she kind of croaked like real early.
Yeah, the wand goes up in her head and her eyeballs go in 2 different directions.
Yeah, that was like that. I've only seen parts of it, but it seemed to me as if that would have been, I don't know, kind of interesting, just because you know they were changing things up so much. But I don't think I ever saw 4, and I didn't see 5 when it came out either.
They're all good.
Awesome.
They're all good. You know, popcorn and soda type movies. I mean, you know, they're entertaining. They're not, you know, they're not spiritual type movies. They're not, you know, really philosophical or really in depth. I mean, they barely have any kind of political type commentary in them, other than, you know, war is bad and, you know, they're stopping bad guys from starting nuclear war, and you know what I mean. Like, it was the same vein as the TV show way back when, and you know, it was the same thing. It was just, you know, stop the bad guys, get the bad guys.
Well, I guess they do, and they're entertaining. But yeah, I guess it is more of a romp for an action movie. Although 1 had more of a stealth secret agent feel to it, for what it's worth. They just ditched that with all the sequels.
Right. Well, I mean, like the first one, I mean, like he's riding the bullet train and is flying so fast, and you know, I mean, like it's, you know, and then the helicopter was in the tunnel in that one, right? And the helicopter went right into the subway tunnel. I mean, everybody's like, "Oh, come on now," you know. And of course, he's flying, and of course, there's another train in the tunnel as well at one point, and he's flying, and you know what I mean? Like, that was pretty unbelievable. So, if you manage to stay on board from the first movie, then the next 4 movies, you know, it's not really much of a stretch. In the latest one, I mean, like, you know, Tom Cruise is hanging off of a plane, and he does it for real. He's hanging off the side of this plane.
Oh yeah.
Taking off. That's amazing. It's almost like watching. It's almost like Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan's the same way. He just creates these really entertaining kind of movies, and you know, you're watching it because it's Jackie Chan, and Tom Cruise is the same thing. We're watching because of Tom Cruise.
Who was the director on the second one? Was that
John Woo?
John Woo, that's right, because that's the one where there was like the motorcycle, and he and another guy like had a in-air like motorcycle duel and all that kind of stuff. And I remember watching that, going, I'm not sure. I don't think.
Have you ever watched a lot of John Woo movies?
Some, yeah. So I'm familiar with the thing.
Hardball is my favorite, and that one is just ridiculous gunfire all over the place, and it's almost like if you had like 2 stormtroopers shooting at each other and not hitting each other, and it's like the fights are all just all over the place, and you know, It's like that, really. You know, like how can you fire that many bullets without reloading and not hit anything?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's good. Is John Woo the one with the dove theme in all of his movies?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, Face Off and.
I liked Face Off. I saw that when I was a little kid, and I was like, "This is amazing! It's so violent!" And I think that's all I liked about it, actually. But
the part that always stuck out for me in Face Off was he's driving home in the neighborhood and he drives past his house, and he's and he tells the wife, "He says, wow, all these houses look the same," and it happens to me all the time because all the houses look the same.
not in New Mexico. We have lots of like really nice houses, and then like trailers, and then like 70-year-old shacks next to another brand new house. We've got all kinds of variety out here.
What about like one of those prospector type mine shaft things? Lots of those.
No,
Might
so
be more
much.
California.
In the South, we've got a copper mine. That's about it.
Oh.
Nothing exciting.
Oh, and then the other JJ Abrams ones that I'm a big fan of.
Yes.
Fringe.
Yeah, I still need to see that show. I know he created Lost, or he's a co-creator of Lost. He created Fringe. He created Felicity.
Yep.
And Alias with Jennifer Garner.
Alias. That's right.
My wife and I used to watch that quite a bit. That's kind of where I first knew about him, really.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's quite the he's a huge fan of Spielberg, and I mean you see it in everything he does.
Specifically 8mm, or not 8mm.
Not 8mm. Super 8.
Super 8, right? Yeah, 8mm, completely different movie. Right? Yeah.
We did that last time, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Super 8 he co-produced, I think, with Spielberg, right?
I believe so, yeah.
I think that's what he did on that, or he wrote it. Let me see here. Super 8, he's director, producer, and writer. So he was very involved with Super 8. Which I thought was a very cute movie. It has that very 80s feel to it, which I appreciate them trying to go for again, even though I don't know if it works now as much.
Well, the thing is like with Abrams, right? Like in his particular style, and you know he emulates a lot of Spielberg and a couple other cats. When he did the Star Trek reboot, that was more like for his resume to get the Star Wars franchise, because he basically made Star Trek into Star Wars.
I was going to say, that makes a lot of sense, because he's already made 2 Star Wars movies, I guess, through the Star Trek universe.
Yeah, he's already done it, and so they said, okay, let's give him Star Wars, and and of course everybody rips on all the lens flare, because I mean he's a huge fan of the lens flare.
Yeah, but I mean I don't think it's necessarily in poor taste. I mean, there are much worse directors to have in control of Star Wars. Lucas. So, we're all right. I'm not worried. I have full faith in this. Mostly.
I don't know, but apparently right now it's getting reviewed, and it's not too bad. I'm trying to avoid all the little spoilers and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah? Well, when are you going to end up seeing it?
I'm probably not going to go till probably Saturday afternoon or maybe Sunday, just because there's only so many uber nerds I can handle, and
wait, that's the best part of going opening night is everyone's dressed up and everyone's sharing memories about when they watched them as kids. It's the best time to go see a movie if you can, especially with a major franchise.
No, if I could go see it and there was absolutely nobody else there except for me and my wife, then that would be the best. That's really I love movies, but I hate going to the theater. It drives me nuts. So yeah, that's why I'm not going tonight. My wife and I are gonna go like Wednesday night next week, and we'll see how that goes. But
so, what are you gonna do? Stick your fingers in your ears till then, or what?
I just assume that it'll get spoiled, and that'll be fine. I'll live through it. We ended up going to see. Accidentally, we ended up going to see Avengers opening night because some friends were in town. They're like, "Oh, let's go see a movie. Let's go see the Avengers." I'm like, "There won't be any tickets." And then I was like, "Oh crap, there are tickets." And then I bought tickets, and then we went. But it was like shoulder to shoulder, people freaking out, losing their minds and stuff. And yeah, when I watch a movie, I want to look and pay attention. Like, I can't even watch movies and eat at the same time, like dinner, because I'll like look down to make sure I'm like, you know, getting the right thing into my mouth or whatever, and then I look up and I've missed something. So I don't like being disturbed when watching movies, and other people have a tendency to disturb me. So that's probably partially because I'm a cranky old man at this point, but whatever, you know, I mean, that's what's going on.
And like I saw episode 1 when it first came out. The first day it came out, I wasn't in the first showing, but it was the first day, and there were still tons of people all dressed and everything like that. And you know, I'm trying to get comfortable, and of course I'm shoulder to shoulder with, you know, an Ewok and a Stormtrooper here, and it feels more like daycare with all these lightsabers all over the place, and everybody's constantly blah blah blah. And then as soon as the curtains draw, everybody's screaming and howling, and it's like, oh my god, so I said never again. I said never again. As
far as opening night, yeah, no, I can see that.
Well, to our audience then, do you, and just so you know, I don't think the comment section is working, but now it's all live chat because, I don't know, that's better or something. Anyway, what do you guys do? Do you guys like to go to opening night at the movies? Do you like to go to the theaters at all, or do you prefer to avoid people altogether, like Graham does, apparently, and
Graham.
Our friend old man Adam here?
Yeah, I don't know. I used to, well, my wife and I used to go to a lot more movies together, and then I think then TVs got so big and high definition and the whole deal that it just became so much easier to just, you know, like we went and saw Mad Max because I had to, you know, but otherwise, yeah, I can't think. We don't go to too many movies, especially not opening night or anything like that. The whole midnight thing. I'm trying to think what other movie. What do you guys think about the JJ Abrams Star Trek films? What do you guys think about those?
So they're entertaining movies, but it's kind of the way I felt when Daniel Craig took over as James Bond. Casino Royale did not feel like a James Bond movie, and so while I enjoyed Star Trek, the reboot with Chris Pine, it didn't feel like a Star Trek movie. Now, admittedly, I haven't seen a whole lot of the movies. I saw Wrath of Khan, which is, I guess, still the best one to see of Star Trek. And there's just so much more action in it, and I don't know that I like what the direction they took with Spock was for him. So, I mean, that's kind of what I think of it, just off the cuff for JJ Abrams Star Trek movies.
I think there are a lot of people who really focus on the old stuff, you know what I mean, and the way that the older movies were, and I enjoyed Star Trek as a kid growing up, but it was one of those situations where, you know, when he made this new movie, I kind of liked the difference. It was, I don't know if you want to say it was a breath of fresh air or whatever, but I did like what was going on, and I know a lot of people have complained about it, kind of hardcore Star Trek people, but I like kind of where he went with it, and I have to admit it probably made the movie more accessible to a lot of people, which I think he kind of does. I think he makes things that are a bit more accessible. I mean, he doesn't make things, in my opinion, nothing that he's ever done has been completely, you know, obfuscated or difficult or avant-garde.
Yeah, nothing controversial.
No, I mean, well, not really controversial, right? Yeah. But it's definitely, I think, stuff that you know, the movies turn out well, and I think that they bring in big audiences, yet they're still interesting enough that they're not just like summer popcorn fluff to some degree. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and I don't know, that kind of begs the question. So, Adam, what makes Star Trek inaccessible, I guess?
I think the thing that was making some of Star Trek inaccessible was like the TV shows. Some of them, like Enterprise, was very, like, even I didn't watch all the way through Enterprise, and I was a Star Trek fan. I was just like, ugh, this is kid. You know, it was just weird. You know, like they would focus so much.
Bon Jovi opener, right? That's the one with his music instead of the normal orchestral. That was Enterprise, right?
Yeah, I think maybe that's the case. Yeah, yeah, I did have some sort of. It had some sort of singing. That's true. I don't know if it was Bon Jovi or not, but yeah. But it was just, I don't know, like that one was kind of difficult, and I gave it a chance. And even Deep Space Nine got very political and kind of deep that way. Which, if that's what you're interested in, that's cool. And I did watch a lot of Deep Space Nine, but you know, if you want the franchise to kind of keep moving forward, you do sometimes have to try to frankly get butts in seats. I don't know that all of the most recent, Star Trek movies, when they were still propping out, Bill Shatner and Spock and all those guys, and when they were in their 70s, I don't know that those were necessarily selling really well as far as tickets were concerned. So,
I think really what, like near the end for Star Trek before, the Abrams reboot was making Star Trek inaccessible was that it's so heavy into its lore and its background, and so when you get into the movies, they don't introduce the characters because we already know the characters. Yeah. And so it makes it inaccessible for anybody who's not familiar with the universe to just kind of jump into it because there's no introduction as to what kind of character Captain Picard is or what kind of character Captain Kirk is, or what I mean, like. Who are these Romans? Why are they such a bad guy?
Isn't that the reason everybody loved the crap out of John Wick, though? I mean, there was no introduction. You just, he's a badass for some reason. And that seemed to have done really well for it. I don't know if that is what audiences need so much.
Well, I mean, I think when there is a lot of backstory and some of the people know it and the other people don't, that can kind of be a definite limiting factor. With John Wick, everybody who watched the movie we were all on the same page because we all didn't know.
Yeah, we all got dropped into the same universe and we were all watching. What the hell's all this? Whereas Star Trek, I mean, like I love Star Trek. I watched all the episodes of every series, and I mean, like I love them. But I mean, with what Abrams did with them, I still really enjoyed. And my sister, who used to tease me when I was watching Star Trek. She went and saw the first one twice in the theater, and so that says something about what he did to that series to make it palatable for people.
Yeah, a good friend of mine was very, very, very into Star Trek as well, and when he found out they were doing a reboot, he got real angry about it because he was really unhappy that they were going to be doing all this stuff. And when we went to see it, and he realized that basically the way that they did the reboot was to change the timeline due to the way that everything happened in that first movie, then he was totally on board. Like for whatever, I mean, it was still a reboot, but the fact that the timeline changed and that's why everything was different than it was in the TV shows that he loved, he was like, oh, okay, cool, it's a different timeline, so I can take that. And I mean, story or whatever be damned, it was about, well, at least it's not messing with my original stuff because the timeline's changed. So I think that was a smart idea on his part, and it also allowed you to reintroduce the characters.
Yeah, no, I agree. The alternate universe was
But does it feel like a bit of a cop-out, though?
Well, yeah, it kind of is, but I don't know that it changes the story a ton.
No, well, it's like if it was a dream or it was a scenario, you know what I mean? Like, and also, it never really happened. Well, this whole thing with this new Kirk and everything like that. Well, it's an alternate timeline, and we're that invested in this timeline yet. So, do we care? Have they stop and go back to the original series, or
Yeah, I mean, I think that because Hollywood has this love affair with redoing stuff over and over again, they kind of needed to kind of sit down and figure out, well, we're going to have to reboot it, and we could just make it a reboot, or we could, say that it's a different timeline, which is a very Star Trek-y thing to do. If they did that, like in Batman, well, that'd be sort of weird, because that stuff doesn't generally happen in Batman movies, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. It was an interesting thing. It was an interesting thing, and I think it worked out well for him. The reviews I've been hearing of the newest trailer for the newest Star Trek Beyond, I believe it's called. A lot of people have been saying that they think that it's basically Star Trek Fast and the Furious, which I guess I don't...
It's the director from Fast and Furious.
Oh, okay. Because I'm like, I don't see them like drifting around corners or doing anything like that, or But I didn't understand that. So if it's director from Fast and Furious, at least now that makes a bit more sense. Yeah, I don't mind the action-y ones for Star Trek. Honestly, I think that it's But
it gave it a very Star Wars feel, because after rewatching the trilogy, the original trilogy today, I did forget how much action there is throughout all of the movies, probably more than there is in any of the prequels, because there's so much time spent in those stupid committees.
Right.
It's, every few moments they're like, oh, we're in danger again. I'm like, oh God, run, Han.
Well, what made the original series great was it was the characters, and you got involved with the characters, whereas in the prequel stuff, there's just so many characters that and he wanted to create he wanted to paint the background, show you the background more than the foreground, and it was kind of crap. You know what I mean? Like, it's not enough to keep you interested and get involved. Whereas, it's much more compelling to watch this little farm boy whose family's burned down, and he ends up going off with this old man, and then that old man gets killed, and then he's hanging out with this thief and his pet dog.
The smuggler and his Wookiee. Such good storytelling. I also love how much goes wrong in those movies. Like in Return of the Jedi, where the Ewoks are in the final fight, and they're coming up with all kinds of plans to try and fight the ATSTs and the Imperial fleet, and they're just like getting dragged trying to trip one of the ATSTs, or just failing at all of their attempts, not all of their attempts, but a lot of their attempts to stop them, because they're just small and they're not used to this type of warfare. And
I have a theory.
More realistic feeling out of these stuffed animals than you saw in, the more recent films.
I have a theory that the Ewoks are the most dangerous species in the Star Wars universe.
Okay, I want to hear this theory.
Okay.
I know the internet wants to hear this theory. I'm just going to talk on behalf of the internet here and say...
Reason why, the Ewoks are the most dangerous, potentially the most dangerous species in the Star Wars universe, is because that in the matter of hours, they were able to create a whole massive amount of siege weapons. They created catapults. They had gliders. They had these log falls, these log traps and stuff like that, all set up in a matter of an afternoon. They had that all set up in an afternoon, and I mean the Ewok village. I mean, that was just a small little village. I mean, and if you're tribal kind of communities. I mean, you don't get a whole bunch of them together. And they massed a massive army to counteract a legion of stormtroopers. A legion. And that's what the Emperor says. He says, I have a legion of my best troops down there. And they massed an army of primitives to counteract a legion of troops.
That's true. He did send the elite group, didn't he?
Yeah,
two things, I think. Number one, when the Emperor says, I'm going to send my best troopers, I mean, really, we're not necessarily aiming super high, because we've seen them in action before. So that's a possibility of a problem. Secondly, the trick, and I may be making this up, but I'm pretty sure that the Ewoks actually killed all the other sentient life forms on that planet. So they already had all those siege weapons ready to go. They didn't build them in an afternoon. They just took them out of storage because they had destroyed every other sentient life form on that planet.
They still had to get all that equipment into that position around that fortress, and also at the end of the fight, and they're playing bongos on their helmets. Where are the guys? Okay. Guess what? We already know that the Ewoks were going to eat them. Why? Because they had Luke and Han up on the spits.
Yeah. Well, that's why they were having that party that night.
Right. So they're eating well. They're eating well. They eat a legion of stormtroopers.
No, they're deadly killers. I don't disagree. I'm just saying they didn't make that stuff in an afternoon. They had it. They were amassing to go and take back that area from the Empire on that planet anyway. Is my thought. That's why it was all there already. So yeah. No, they were possibly the most deadly killers in that entire series.
Yeah, I would argue that the Ewoks are the deadliest species in Star Wars.
Have you seen the thing about Jar Jar and how he's actually a Sith master?
No.
I haven't seen it either, but it's been all over the internet, and it's basically this theory that actually Jar Jar was behind.
I almost had a brain hemorrhage.
Yeah, well, because Jar Jar was behind the scenes on all of this stuff, and they say that he was actually a Sith master that brought the entire 3 movies and did what happened. Which is funny because I used to play the Star Wars miniatures tabletop skirmish games, so it was the pre-painted miniatures, and they came with all that stuff, and in that game there was a Jar Jar figure. And basically, if you shot at Jar Jar within a certain number of hex or squares or whatever, he would automatically bounce that shot, like he would trip over a rock or something, and that shot would bounce off of something else, and then you would get to redirect the shot towards a different person, not even on your team. You could
Right.
So I was playing against a guy one time, and there was just Jar Jar in this hallway, and there was 4 stormtroopers, and they all started unloading on him, and I'm telling my opponent, that he has this thing, and he's like, yeah, no, it's fine. Well, because of this special ability, Jar Jar eventually killed all 4 of those stormtroopers with his flailing around and his weird monkey whatever going on, and so I'd started referring to Jar Jar because it was the map we were playing on was called Teth Palace. So I started referring to him as Jar Jar Binks, the Butcher of Teth Palace, because he had killed basically most of the guys on the other team. And so I think there's something to be said about Jar Jar actually being the puppet master that pulls the strings, and being a Sith Lord. So there's probably someone in the chat they could probably find that link to that video, but it's a YouTube video about how it's really actually all because of Jar Jar.
I could see that it's because of Jar Jar that Anakin went evil. I could see a theory more accurately leaning everybody toward that. Like, he was the reason why the Empire gained so much power through his own incompetence. And that could put him up there with Sith Lord.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, maybe JJ Abrams, I know they're going to be making some more Star Wars movies based off of, like, single figures. Like, they're going to have I know the first one I think is going to be a Boba Fett movie. It's going to be just about Boba Fett. I think they should make one about Jar Jar Binks, Sith Lord, and I think that could be kind of fun. Oh. People would dig that, frankly, I think, because there's a lot of hate for Jar Jar, but if it found out that he was actually, that he knew what he was doing the entire time.
Pulling the strings the whole time, I think he would have a hard time swallowing that.
Well,
he's for kids, right? Because those movies are for kids.
It's a weird Jamaican frog monkey is what he is.
People hate Jar Jar, but way back when Empire Return of the Jedi came out, people hated the Ewoks.
People hated the Ewoks. Well, they got their own movie. Do you guys remember ever seeing that?
Yeah.
Was it made for TV? Yeah. I knew girls when I was a little kid, and I ended up hating the Ewoks because all the girlfriends I had just could not stand, like, they were in love with them. They absolutely loved Ewoks, and I hate stuffed animals. And so I had no interest in them at all, and everyone else's enjoyment of them apparently annoyed me. But watching them tonight, they were fine.
Did they grow on you? Jar Jar will in time, too.
Well, they're more competent than Jar Jar was, though. I mean, all the things Jar Jar did that caused so many problems, including, like, even in the Gungan War or whatever. Just and then they made him like a senator.
As far as you know, he was doing that all by mistake, but actually, I think it was like drunken master kind of, Jackie Chan fighting is what it is.
Master,
yeah.
But I never enjoyed stuff like the Three Stooges. I never enjoyed that kind of comedy where,
nobody does.
He walks out and he's just trying to get something from across the yard, and so he steps in the bucket and steps on the hose, which steps on a clod of soil, and then by the end of it, he just can't even make it across a short distance of lawn because he's just tangled himself up in so many things. It's an irritating form of comedy for me.
With Jar Jar, that same kind of thing would start, and he would step on the rake, and then he would step on the hose, and then eventually, in the Star Wars movies, the prequels, it would eventually turn into a Federation blockade of the Separatists on Naboo. And I'm not exactly sure how those things, like, instead of just getting dirty, these weird things would happen. There was a lot of policy and talking in those first movies, which is probably why a lot of people who liked the originals didn't like the other ones. I mean, the third movie, Revenge of the Sith, is that what the third movie was called?
Yeah, Revenge of the Sith.
That one's not bad. If you could, like, get rid of the crappy love story stuff. Exactly. But that whole lightsaber battle on that planet that's all made out of magma and all that crap going on, like, that's pretty cool. That's like a really cool lightsaber battle. It's way cooler than any ones from the early movies. It's a little over the top, obviously, but they were doing some cool stuff. Now, I don't know if you can make an entire movie of just basically one long lightsaber battle on a lava planet, but maybe they would have done better. Yeah, it could have done. Hard to say.
Well,
Did any of you, to sort of change topics, did any of you see Cloverfield, which is another JJ Abrams?
I did. I absolutely hated the movie when I watched it because I found the motion actually made me feel sick. And I'm trying to remember, because you end up seeing the little CGI monsters in it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was it. The opening scene for it, however long, the first act, basically, of the movie, I couldn't get on board with because I hated the protagonists so much. They were just these partier folks, like just some yuppies in the city, I think, and they were all assholes to each other. And so whenever they're in danger, I'm like,
you don't give a shit about them at all.
No, for me, it wasn't so much. I mean, I like the movie. I own it on Blu-ray, but it's not so much that I like the people in it. I'm almost kind of rooting more for the monster a little bit. You know what I mean? And I'm interested in seeing the ways that they're kind of working it in, and like what's going on between the monster and the city. And I just rewatched it. I don't know, probably about a month ago, and I was watching some of the behind-the-scenes stuff because I always love behind-the-scenes stuff in those types of movies. So they were talking about the monster and they were talking about all this stuff, and they kind of, I don't know if they let it slip or if it was just a thing they just sort of mentioned, but they basically were saying the trick with this monster is that it's kind of a baby, like it's a very young kind of a baby, and all the stuff that it's doing in New York, all the destruction, all the stuff is basically because it's scared. And when you watch the movie again from that angle and you see basically this humongous baby flailing around the city being attacked by the military and all this stuff and everything, it becomes a little bit sad, but it's like an interesting kind of like different layer, I think, to the movie. Yeah. And yeah, the people in general, you're supposed to not particularly like them, I think. But for me, they were just more of the backdrop for what's going on, you know. It gets a little.
You follow.
What's that?
I mean, that's also your view of that's your entry into the film is through those protagonists, I guess.
Yeah.
If you don't like them, it's hard to want to stay on board with them.
See, with me, again, it was just like they were kind of set dressing, and I was paying more attention to what was going on with the monster and what was going on with the military, and some of the people. Like there was a woman, I can't think of the actress's name, Lizzie something. And she was like at this party, even though she didn't exactly want to be, and then at some point she got like infected with those spores, and then eventually sort of blew up at that one point, you know, when they got to that department store, because they didn't realize, like the army guys found out that she had a scratch, and she's like, I don't feel very good, and they like ran her into this tent, and she blew up inside the tent, and that was pretty cool. Her I kind of liked, but you know, yeah, I don't know, it was. A lot of the people, like, yeah, the brother, there was like the main protagonist, and then I think there was his brother, and his brother kind of died on the bridge, and he was a jerk completely.
Yeah.
So in some of those situations, you were like, oh, good, he's dead. You know what I mean? And so that you got that going too. But I don't know. I enjoy that movie, and it's a very different movie. I haven't seen. I mean, I used to watch a lot of Godzilla when I was a kid, so when I heard that JJ Abrams was going to do something kind of Godzilla-y, you know, I was like, well, I don't know, but. I certainly like it a lot more than the new reboot for Godzilla, that's for sure.
I think the people in Cloverfield, though, they were there to provide scale.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. They're like kind of part of the framework. You're like, you know,
just when they're on this, the audience understands how the scope of what is going on.
When they're on the street and the head of the Statue of Liberty like crashes down the street they're on and like lands like 50 feet away or whatever, that's also to kind of just again be like, here's the scale. This is what's going on, you know.
This is how big.
A lot of those monster effects can be a little desensitizing, though. I mean, if you know anything about, I mean, if you've ever like fallen and hurt yourself, you know that buildings don't just crumble and smash up so easy like they do in movies. When you see the Hulk running around smashing through things, it's not as effective to think that buildings can be destroyed so easily, even by a big scary monster. And a monster can be perfectly scary without it having to just like, without effort, just destroy buildings as it wanders through town. You guys, you saw, I'm sure, the first Matrix.
Yeah.
Like one of the most effective scenes in that was when I think it's Agent Smith who's fighting Morpheus and like puts his head through a toilet. Like that was so effective because you're like, oh god, I can actually imagine how that would feel. Whereas I don't know, Wolverine versus Sabretooth, and they're like, oh, we're gonna just punch through cinder blocks and buildings and fountains and everything. You're like, okay, sure.
Yeah, I get. I'm trying to think. It was one of the Terminator movies, the one with Christian Bale, Salvation, I think.
Yeah, that was actually shot here in Mexico.
And there was a fight between, I think it was between John Connor and one of the Terminator, like the metal Terminator, not the Arnold Schwarzenegger one, but just like the metal, the endoskeleton. And the endoskeleton just keeps picking him up and throwing him around this factory. And I'm thinking to myself, if this thing is trying to kill him, It is doing it in the slowest possible way. Because if you can pick up a human and just throw them by their arm, you could grab both arms and just pull them apart. And then that guy's going to die. You don't have to throw him into like wall after wall after wall and then have him,
Which
like,
should still render him unconscious and bloody.
or at least like broken bones. But yeah, exactly. But really, if you just wanted to just, if you're an endoskeleton and you need to kill someone, just grab both arms and then just pull, and that will pretty much take care of it. So that's a tip for any of you endoskeletons out there. If you do need to kill someone, just pull their arms off. It'll be fine.
Demon Jester in chat says Ewoks were supposed to be Wookiees, but the money was not there.
Yeah.
More interesting. I don't know. I would say it'd be more interesting to see a Wookiee movie, but I lied. I've seen the Star Wars Christmas special, and that is what that mostly is.
That's a lot about Wookiees, but it's also about Christmas, and it's about what's her name? She was on the Golden Girls. B. Arthur. It's about B. Arthur. She's in that as well, and I don't know that. Yeah, there was a lot of problems with that.
Yeah.
Like I don't think you can go out. I don't think you can buy it. I don't think that they may have tried to burn it, but it might be on YouTube.
Yeah, there's probably a hole in Nevada where all those copies were buried.
Next to all the ET games for the Atari 2600.
Yeah, exactly. Right next to that hole.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also out here.
But yeah, so I don't know. I mean, there were a bunch of, like you said, there was that Ewok show for a little while. There was an animated show, I think, possibly called Droids.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, there was an Ewok cartoon. No, there was an Ewok cartoon.
Mm-hmm. So
and,
yeah, I mean,
and along with the droids, yeah.
And as far as Star Wars goes, I'm really not up on the other canon. Like I've seen the movies, and I saw their animated movie several years back. Do you guys remember that one where
The Clone Wars?
What was it?
The Clone Wars?
Yes, I think it was.
Yeah. The Clone Wars were the 2D animated stuff. They were like 10-minute segments. They were pretty good. And then they had the 3D animated ones, and they're all right. They're about 20 minutes long, a regular kind of half-hour type show.
Mm-hmm.
I found them kind of interesting, but
the 2D animated ones were done by the same guy who does Samurai Jack, I think.
Yeah.
Gennady Tartakovsky or something like that, and those were kind of interesting. They were 5 to 10 minute episodes, and they kind of talked about stuff that went between, I think, episode 2 and episode 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the most interesting things, there was a battle in one of those. It was a battle between General Grievous, who's that kind of half robot sort of dude who was in the third movie, and Mace Windu, who's Sam Jackson. And in the second, it's so interesting because in the third movie, General Grievous, he's like just got like a little bit of like lungs and heart and some squishy stuff in the middle, but the rest of him is all skeleton or like exoskeleton, endoskeleton, whatever, all robot. And he always has this weird cough in the movie. And I'm like, why?
In the beginning of the movie, yeah, he's got the weird cough.
Why does this robot have a cough? Well, as it turns out, if you watch the 2D animated Clone Wars, it's because Mace Windu gave him that cough.
Yeah, it crushes.
They were having this huge battle, and Mace Windu like force crushed his like rib cage and screwed him all up. But I'm like, so if you didn't watch that one 5-minute episode, you missed that part from the entire third episode of the movies, which is sort of weird. But it just kind of goes to show.
Watched all those things.
Oh, certainly, yeah. That's the thing. It goes to show you like the whole like the depth to which this is all going. And now with the new movies, I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen the pictures of like all the different weird like the merchandising. Like there's BB-8, that little round robot. There's like pictures of him on packages of oranges and stuff like that.
He's adorable. He's adorable, and I want that little robot.
Sure.
You can control him with your iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
I want that. I don't know why, but I have to have that robot.
A guy that I know at work's got it, and it is kind of cool. But it's if you get him going too fast, then he's too fast for his head, and then his head kind of falls off. So you have to not go full tilt. I guess is the trick. If there's a
That's just like any guy.
Yeah, well, exactly. If I go too fast, my head's gonna come off. So yeah. So
whatever. R2-D2 is the best one ever.
He's got problems on stairs, but other than that, yes, I think he's probably pretty good.
Well, I would like to know why in the Star Wars universe, why in the prequel movies he could fly and do all sorts of crazy crap, and then in the original series he doesn't do any of that.
He ran out of fuel. Yeah. He didn't have any more. No, that's what he didn't have a recharge of the whatever made his rockets work. Because people would ask that to be like, why can he fly in the new movies and he couldn't do it in the original ones? Yeah. And I believe
I'd like to know why. Did he sacrifice something to give up his ability to fly? Did he try to save C-3PO?
Well, clearly R2-D2 needs his own movie to explain just one single difference.
Yeah. I think there was a warranty issue, actually. I think that's what the problem was.
It's a warranty.
It was not a warranty.
Yeah.
Well, some argue, and I would be one, that Star Wars is really the story of those two droids.
Well, yeah, because they're in all of them.
Yeah.
And honestly, really, R2 should really... He probably could have told people, like, in 4, 5, and 6... about some of the stuff that happened in 1, 2, and 3, and that might have helped. Like, he could have told Luke when they were flying to Dagobah, oh, by the way, Darth Vader, that's your dad. You know what I mean? He could have just... Because when he would talk, that thing would get on the screen, and so, yeah, I think he just was hedging his bets, frankly, and seeing who wins.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Michael Gray suggests that the midichlorians infected R2's flight card. Just blame the Force, obviously.
Yeah, we just blame the Force.
Physically established Force.
Midichlorians.
I hope they just ignore that for this new movie. But
I think so.
I get the feeling they probably will.
Well, I remember an interview that Abrams had done, and he said that with these new movies, that they were not going to follow the canon that had been established since, you know, the original movies were released, like all the extended stories, all the comics, and all that.
They refer to it as the extended universe. Yeah.
Yeah, and because in the extended universe, like Luke is a Sith, like a proper Sith.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas this one, we don't really see Luke as a Sith. He actually looks like he's wearing like light robes. He's got a dark cloak, but he looks like he's wearing a light robe.
He's not really in much of the trailers, which a lot of people have kind of brought up, and so that'll be interesting to see where that goes.
I think that's the big part. I think because what the main thing about this story is that I think it's really about Luke because he's the most powerful Jedi, Sith, whatever he is out there.
Sure.
Did you see him in The Kingsman?
Yeah, I almost didn't even recognize him.
I know because he looked a lot. I don't know. He looked older, or he looked. He's a very good voice actor. So obviously, because he does the voice of the Joker and the animated stuff, things like that. So he's got a lot of voice actor credit to his name. And so yeah, it was good to see him though in The Kingsman, which for the most part I liked The Kingsman quite a bit until the very end, and then I kind of didn't like that part. But all the rest of it,
I agree. It hit ludicrous speed at that point, but it was very interesting to get. That. I meant to also point out, I think last time we were talking about these kinds of movies, Man from U.N.C.L.E. I thought was fantastic.
Did you watch that one? Yeah, how was that?
It was really fun. It's along the same lines as Kingsman, except I think it stays real even keel the whole way in its humor.
Well, it's a period piece too, isn't it? Like the 60s?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's Cold War stuff, isn't it?
Absolutely. So to go back to the JJ Abrams stuff, let's see if you guys are familiar with some of his earlier works. It looks like the first film he ever actually was involved with is as a writer for the movie Taking Care of Business. Have either of you seen that one?
Taking Care of Business?
No, that doesn't ring a bell. Who's in that?
I'll tell you. James Belushi, Charles Grodin, Andrew Salvo, Lauren Lachlan.
Oh, yeah, vaguely.
Oh, you remember? Because I haven't seen this one.
James Belushi and I know there was I think maybe James Belushi and Charles Grodin were in a couple of movies, but I don't know. That's probably like late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, that's probably
1990 is when Abrams' career actually started. Was like 1990 and on.
Sure.
So I hadn't seen that one. Someone on my Facebook had commented that they really liked that movie, and I looked for it, but it isn't on Netflix, so whatever. But I did watch his next movie called Regarding Henry, which had Harrison Ford in it. Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
That one was pretty interesting. Lawyer who loses his memory after being shot, and he's like horrible, evil person before, and like I guess learns how to be a nice person as he recovers. Forever Young with Mel Gibson.
Oh, yeah.
Next one.
I've never seen that one.
Then he was an actor in something called 6 Degrees of Separation.
Oh, that was the first big movie that Will Smith was in.
Really?
That was that one? I
Yeah, that was like his big breakout role. Like he had been obviously in like Fresh Prince, I think, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, 6 Degrees of Separation, if I remember correctly, that was the first like dramatic role that Will Smith had.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. Was that like his first jump to actual movies from TV though at all?
I believe so. Yeah. No, I think it was his first jump to movies, and it also was more of a dramatic role.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah, 1993 on that one. I remember, like, my earliest memory of Will Smith that wasn't part of Fresh Prince was in Independence Day. So I think that was part of his real early career.
Did you guys see the trailer for the new Independence Day?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was noticing how next year it looks like it's definitely going to be an even more hardcore year of sequels. We've got Finding Dory, because I was walking out of the theater the other day and all the movie posters were up for the sequels of these movies that hadn't even had a new movie in a long time. What was the other one? I should have written it down, but I'll point it out to you. Either way, it was kind of crazy.
The new Independence Day, it's interesting. I mean, I like how it's, they're continuing it on, how, the humans have evolved to use the alien technology, but now, there's these other aliens, or maybe they're the same ones, I don't know, and they're coming back in even bigger ship, and, it's going to squish the Earth, I don't know. But
for me, frankly, I think that it's going to be a situation of the most interesting part of that movie is going to be figuring it, like just seeing how Earth is different because of all the leftover alien crap,
Well, you see in the aircraft, right?
They
look pretty wild.
But when that kind of movie ends, and then you're like, well, now they've got all this alien junk sitting around, and they're probably going to take it apart, figure out how it works, and then eventually, that's going to make things different. But then they don't do that in the movies. Well, now they finally did. So that's sort of
like at the end of Independence Day. I mean, you would assume that all those big ships are crashing. I mean, all the fighter planes were still wandering around. I mean, you would have had these guys stuck on the planet. I'm sure they'd all gathered up, formed an army, made it like some sort of insurrection force, and you know what I mean? Like they would run amok on Earth for some time, right?
Yeah.
You would assume that.
It's kind of like in a little bit. I think it's kind of like in Pacific Rim, where you have the like when the new like anytime one of those big monsters dies on land, then almost like a little city kind of crops up around it, and they strip all the stuff off of it because it's like useful and stuff and everything, and I think that they're kind of probably did a lot of that in the new in the new Independence Day, just because some of those vehicles were so huge, and they crashed in like Africa and and Russia and all these different places. I mean, people had to go through and pull stuff out of there. So yeah, I like to see that they're going to try to do kind of a gritty reboot. I do generally enjoy the gritty reboot. I'm a big fan of the Nolan Batman. I actually kind of like Casino Royale, which you mentioned before, Miranda. I like Casino Royale because it's so different from the earlier James Bond movies.
I feel like Jason Bourne movies was the difference for me in those, though, because it was gritty, I guess. And Jason Bourne, those movies are very gritty and violent.
Generally pretty realistic. No one ever has a laser watch or a flying car or anything like that. It's like people getting shot in the face and jumping off of a building and doing stuff like that, and and granted, halfway through each movie, Jason really should have a couple of dislocated shoulders and stuff like that, but you kind of get past that stuff, and but I like the Bourne ones, though the story is usually not super deep. It's still, I think, pretty interesting to watch. So I think I saw there was that one that had Jeremy Renner in it.
Yeah. Legacy?
Yeah, I don't think I watched. I think I saw part of it on TV. I don't think I watched the entire thing.
It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's worth a watch. If you like the Bourne stuff, it was worth it. And Jeremy Renner's, he's pretty darn good.
Yeah, I generally like him. I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. So because I brought it up earlier, just to point out the kind of sequels we're looking at next year. We've got Kung Fu Panda 3, We've got Ride Along 2. We've got a sequel to Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. We've got a sequel to Zoolander.
Oh, jeez.
We've got a sequel to My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Of course, a new Batman versus Superman, but that's different. Let me see here. A sequel to The Huntsman, which I don't even know. I guess the movie did make its box office. Or
have you seen the trailer for that new one?
The new one actually looks interesting, mostly
It
because
does. It looks really cool.
not in it.
It looks like a giant battle, doesn't it? Isn't it
Yeah.
like a really big? Yeah.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool. I like the whole art style they went with that.
The Alice in Wonderland movie, the Tim Burton one.
Yeah.
Right? Making a sequel to Neighbors, Independence Day, like you pointed out. The Conjuring is getting a sequel. Now You See Me has a sequel. Another Ninja Turtles is on the way.
Yeah. Oh, Ninja Turtles. Awesome.
Movie. And then the next Star Trek movie is actually looking to be out next year too.
Yeah.
We've also got Ghostbusters, which I don't know. I haven't seen enough about it. I know it's all female cast talk. I'm actually kind of on board with this because I don't think they're actually trying to specifically gender swap or take away from the originals.
Apparently, it is these friends, and like they buy into the franchise. And but the Ghostbusting thing is like a dying franchise, I guess, in this time, and so, but they're gonna make, I guess because there's more ghosts coming out, just like like the original ones, it was because there was ghosts, and they're emerging and coming back in numbers. That they saw a business opportunity in it, and so like this one here, these 4 women get together, and yeah, so it's not. I don't think it's supposed to be like a gender swap, and it's gonna be the original story told again.
Yeah.
I think it's a continuation, basically. It's basically Ghostbusters 3.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and Melissa McCarthy gives me hope because she's genuinely very funny.
She is. Yeah. She's hilarious. I like her.
She was great in Spy.
Yeah,
that was really good. I liked that movie quite a bit, actually. They did really good work with that.
Yeah, I was laughing at the part where she was tied up with the Italian guy at the end there. Yeah.
Just, I mean, like the way that they just kind of took a lot of different stereotypes and sort of went in different directions with them, or just ignored them altogether. I really kind of liked that. My favorite part of Spy was when she's like undercover and she almost gets caught. And then she just starts being real mean to that one guy who's like the assistant. Like, well, the reason that I've been lying this whole time is because I've been testing you guys, and she is just a jerk to that guy for like the rest of the movie, and like just like completely over the top. And every time she would say something to that guy, I would bust out laughing because they were just hysterical. So
the only thing with Melissa McCarthy movies though is up until Spy, they always make her look weird in movies.
Oh, I agree. And they did a little bit of that in the earlier part of the movie. They would dress her up in weird costumes and stuff like that. And
I don't know
halfway through, they were like, and they kind of like threw that away. And she's like, "That's stupid. We're not going to do that anymore." Yeah. And well, because she's a heavier woman, so therefore, haha, we have to make fun of that or whatever.
I guess,
and she's getting around that, and I like that.
Well, because she's writing a lot of her own stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm all for it. She's hilarious, and she totally earns her box office as far as
I remember when I first saw her on. She was on the Gilmore Girls. Like she was like a recurring character on the Gilmore Girls. She was like the chef at the bed and breakfast or whatever that the mom from the Gilmore Girls owned, and they've been friends for a long time. She was and then she was a baker in the little town before that, and I always thought she was really funny in that, and so when I started seeing her doing other movies and things, I'm like, oh, good, it's good to see her doing that, and now she's getting real popular and bringing in a lot of money. So
my first introduction to her was that Bridesmaid. And she was hilarious in that. And then I was surprised because that Mike and Molly show, it's her, and I was like, what? That's her?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, holy crap! Well, like, how come she looks like this in this movie, and then she looks like this in the show? She looks normal in the TV show, and then in the movie she looks, really greasy and just, and then you see her in other movies and she's like just really, I don't know, just really homely, like,
She was in some movie. Well, she was in that movie with Jason Bateman where she was. like something about
identity theft.
yeah, identity theft, right? And she was kind of, and there was another movie she was in called Tammy, where she was like, I don't know, sort of.
Tammy was hilarious. I loved that one actually.
But I mean, again, she was like this weird person and looked all odd and stuff like that and whatever. Yeah. So.
Yeah, Susan Sarandon, I really liked her in that role too. She was so crazy.
Yeah, no, that one was funny too. I like that one. Everything she's put out so far has been good, which is kind of rare for somebody in the beginnings.
Kind of weak, but yeah, I think for the most part, I never saw Bridesmaids. I know people were like, "Oh, you need to see it. It's so vulgar and crazy." I'm like, that's not really where I find something humorous, but I'll eventually watch it. Just until it appears on Netflix, I'm probably not going to go out of my way.
Uncontrollable Flatulence, it doesn't do it for you?
Oddly enough, the Nutty Professor was like the last time I thought that was funny, and I was probably 8 or something. So.
Well, you need to embrace your inner 8-year-old then.
That must be it.
Yeah.
Bridget Jones' Diary is getting a sequel next year. Bridget Jones' Baby.
Okay, well now we have proof the apocalypse is coming.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to watch that.
What, really?
You just said it right there yourself.
Yeah.
What's the date? Because I want to know what day the apocalypse is occurring.
No, I've got something going on that weekend, I'm sure. So I probably won't be seeing that, no.
I have a prior engagement, or I will.
Indeed.
I plan to have a prior engagement.
Yeah.
JJ Abrams' next movie along the timeline here, he was a producer on a movie called Pallbearer. You guys seen that one? 1996?
Pallbearer, no.
I'm seeing Gwyneth Paltrow and that guy from Friends. What's his name? David Schwimmer.
Oh, yeah, okay. No, I didn't see it. Yeah, you just named David Schwimmer, and I'm like, oh, no, I'm not.
So amazing. Audience, feel free to jump in here, because I don't know if you guys have seen these either.
Well, because, despite what he looks like, he's old.
Who?
Oh, JJ Abrams?
Yeah.
49.
That's old.
Wow. All right.
I know it's not too far off for me. I don't know about Adam, but...
Well, you just turned 40, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm 44, so it's another 5 years for me.
Okay. Well, you got a head start on me, buddy.
That's true.
Then he was an actor in something called Diabolique, I guess. Diabolique. With Sharon Stone.
Diabolique. Yeah, I can't think of that. Yeah. Every once in a while you see, like, directors who you're like, I bet that guy used to be in movies. Because, there are certain directors you can tell that just can't act and don't have that thing. And then there's like, well, look at Eli Roth.
Okay.
I mean, are you familiar with Eli Roth?
Yeah.
Let me see. I'll have to look him up to be familiar.
He directed a bunch of horror movies. He directed the first Hostel movie. I don't know about the other ones. I know there was that one, not Cabin in the Woods, but Cabin Fever, I think. Yeah. And then he was in. Did you see?
Cabin Fever, yeah. Hostel.
Did you see Inglourious Bastards?
Oh, he's the actor. Okay, he's the bear Jew in that one.
Yeah, he's the bear Jew in that one, but he's a director mostly. But he's
an actor mostly, according to this history here. But he's done a few things.
But he's directed a bunch, so it's interesting to see people who can kind of do both of those things. And I'm just watching like behind the scenes stuff with JJ Abrams. Now that you guys are mentioning that he's been in some stuff, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see that. Because honestly, I watched the behind the scenes for Swingers. And the guy who was the director, they were talking to this guy, and he's wearing like a stretched out sort of dirty T-shirt and everything and all this, and they're talking to him like in the mid-2000s. His name is Doug Lyman, and I'm like, wow, that's really too bad that he's basically homeless now after being the director of, But as it turns out, he's directed Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Edge of Tomorrow. Like, he's done all this stuff. He just showed up that day for behind the scenes looking like a homeless guy. So... he's not acting in a lot of things, is my point. Whereas to get, and a lot of directors can be like that because that's not their focus. They're thinking about making movies. They're not thinking about, the kind of physical stuff like that. Whereas if you have been on both sides of the camera, I think it can be.
Now, as I recall, those Swingers, I thought that was Jon Favreau.
Jon Favreau wrote it, and maybe co-directed, but maybe Maybe Doug Liman was the.
No, you're right. Doug Liman is the director of that.
Okay, I didn't know if he was a director or producer.
And he acts in it, and he's a director as well.
Exactly. Jon Favreau, another one who's a director and an actor, and you can kind of see that. But yeah, when you watch the behind the scenes with Doug Liman, he's just like in that particular movie, the Blu-ray for Swingers. He just like I'm like, wow, it sucks that he's never. And then I looked him up, and I'm like, oh Jesus, he's probably made like $1 billion of movies. Yeah, you know. So yeah, he just showed up kind of rough that day, I guess. So.
It turns out there's not much of a dress code in Hollywood.
Yeah, no, that's true.
All right, so JJ Abrams went on to write Gone Fishing. Any of you guys heard of that?
No.
Who's that?
Let's find out. Gone Fishing, 1997. Joe Pesci and Danny Glover. What could go wrong?
Oh yeah, they like bought a charter boat or something like that, or
yeah, it's like one of the bucket list. It's like one of them bucket list ones.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah.
Well, but no, I didn't see it.
Apparently not an amazing one. Then he went on to write Armageddon, which I'm sure we've all seen. Better or worse.
Yeah, Armageddon.
He was one of the 500 writers on Armageddon.
Armageddon's great. That stands the test of time.
That's right. Nothing totally confused about that movie whatsoever.
It's like all Michael Bay movies, they're timeless classics.
Oh my goodness. Was it Steve Buscemi? Is that the guy in it? Where he goes from being like nice to crazy to murderous to just quirky, like all because of the different writers in control of him? Yeah, Steve Buscemi.
Yeah.
Weird character in that movie.
He's a weird character anyway.
I liked him in, I guess, Reservoir Dogs? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, he's a little bit of a douche there, and you know.
He was really good in Ghost World. I liked Ghost World quite a bit.
I don't think I've seen that one.
Yeah, that one's based off. It's actually Thora Birch and a very young and relatively unknown what's her name, Scarlett Johansson.
Oh.
And it's based off of a comic book, actually. It's based off of Daniel Close's comic book. And, yeah, that one's really good. That's a kind of a quirky movie, but it's still pretty enjoyable.
Gotcha. What else have we got here? The Suburbans. You guys familiar with that? 1998.
No.
We've got Jennifer Love Hewitt. Oh, wow. I haven't heard her name in a long time. Amy Brenneman. Donald Larder Ward. I don't know. Oh, Will Ferrell's in it, I guess. Eventually. He's one of the bottom rung characters in here. Sundance film movie. Joyride. I saw Joyride. That's the one with Lily Sobieski in it. Which I think is a spiritual successor to, like, The Duel, if you guys have seen that.
No.
Mm-mm.
It's a very interesting movie. That was one of Steven Spielberg's early movies. I think he did it as a made-for-TV film. And it just all takes place of this on the road with this guy who's getting harassed by a big rig truck, and you never see the guy in the truck, but it keeps you on, like, in suspense for 90 minutes or however long it runs, just driving.
That sounds cool.
Pretty cool. It's kind of where you see Steven Spielberg's strengths, I think. What else have we got here? Mission Impossible 3. So that was his first directing debut, and that was in 2006. So over a 9-year span, I guess JJ Abrams went from writing TV movies, starting TV, to directing the next Star Wars. It's a pretty awesome career.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's been pretty damn busy since that.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, he's really good at the fan service, I think. It's really what it is. Because he is a super fan of a lot of these classic things, that he's able to convey them, like Fringe. Fringe is essentially X-Files. And it was really great. It was a really interesting show, and the show was just like X-Files, really, just a little different, but it was still really, really good. And just
yeah, a friend of mine who really loves that show. I know I need to see it, but I'm so behind on TV. It's kind of
Fringe. Oh, it's definitely worth a watch. Again, it's JJ Abrams' take on X-Files, and I enjoyed it. I mean, the lead character, she's all right. Her acting is all right. She's an Australian, I believe, and a lot of scenes where it seems like
Anna Torres character, the main female.
yeah,
Yeah.
and in a lot of scenes where it should be more intense, it seems like she's always got like a bit of a smirk on her face or like a half smile.
Oh no.
And it kind of takes you out of the moment for a second. You're like, well, what the frig is she smiling at? You know, they're in the middle of a gunfight, and here she's kind of got like this bit of a smirk on her face. And it's like,
Wow.
you know. But other than that, that's my only gripe with the show. Is it just the strength of her acting was the only thing. Everything else in the show is great though. And Buddy, who plays the dad, what's his name there? He was the steward of Gondor.
Yeah, no, I know who you're talking about. I can't think of his name though.
Yeah.
The actor, I mean.
I want to say something Noble. Bill Noble? No. John Noble? John Noble.
That could be, yeah.
John Noble, that's his name.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he's great in that show.
And he looked so much older than he actually is, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember seeing commercials for it and then seeing that same guy in something else later on and going, how'd that guy get so much younger all of a sudden? But that's because he was not actually that old.
Yeah, they make him look pretty rough in that.
No.
Because he's supposed to be like a little bit mentally deranged, right? So, but yeah, definitely watch Fringe. It's worth your time. It's just it's crazy adventures. It's X-Files. It's like the story kind of leads into the next one. There is a kind of an overall arc to everything, but it's the beginning of every episode is this new strange kind of tech shows up and it does something weird, like change people into werewolves or stuff like that, right? And by the end of the episode, they're solving it, and so you have every episode kind of getting resolved for the most part, because each one would kind of the little nugget would be left alone until like the second season or stuff like that, right? So
Yeah.
it's a good show. I enjoyed it.
So give it a shot.
Give it a shot.
Well, you're like the 500th person to tell me to do that, and yes, I should. I will.
It's on Netflix, I think, isn't it?
I think it is.
It should be.
Yeah.
It's just with TV, it's a much larger investment for me. I haven't even seen the new Jessica Jones stuff, and I've been wanting to see that because I'm trying
almost
to
halfway through those,
Yeah.
and they're not bad. But apparently it gets a lot more intense near the end.
My wife and I have watched the first 3, and we've enjoyed it quite a bit. And we had watched the Daredevil before that, so yeah, the Daredevil was really good, and so far we've been liking this. So yeah, I'm glad to see that kind of stuff happening. I'd like to see. It'd be interesting to see if JJ Abrams takes a break and goes back to television at some point, or goes straight to Netflix or a place like that. I mean, because if you look at, I mean, he's got some pretty stellar television chops as well between Lost and I'm not going to say Felicity because I didn't ever really watch that. But
I remember that was on forever though.
Yeah, Alias was really pretty good though. My wife and I watched that as well, and that was pretty good. And then you're looking at like people like, so you got Jennifer Garner, who was basically unknown at the time. You got Bradley Cooper was in that, who was also pretty unknown at the time. It was cool because admittedly, it started out, it was just like spy stuff, and then it sort of started getting weird about 4 or 5 seasons in, but it was still a pretty decent show, I thought.
Well, as I recall, because I was doing some research on Jessica Jones before it had started, because I'm way behind on many of the comics. I hadn't read that stuff since I was, had more money to pay for comics. But I thought Alias was kind of taken from a little bit of Jessica Jones' story, because she was an unknown hero at the time, and she could kind of infiltrate. And
like
so
the on Jessica Jones, I think in the comics she was maybe a character like with an outfit and the whole deal, known as Alias, and in the TV show her private investigation agency is known as Alias Investigations.
Okay.
But I don't think that Alias, the TV show, had anything to do with Jessica Jones' character at all. Like it, literally, like in Alias, the TV show, she worked for the CIA.
Okay.
But none of her friends obviously knew that she did, and then stuff evolved from there. But originally, it was just a kind of a straight up sort of spy type kind of thing, and she would dress up in different outfits and be different people and do all this stuff so that she could sneak into places and this and that. And there was this overreaching kind of storyline like there always is, but there's also but yeah, it was a decent show. It got weird towards the end, but so did Lost, and so did a lot of that stuff. So
I think creators get a little worried on how they're going to end those series. Whenever you have such a big fan base, hard not to disappoint people.
Well,
or there's not other ideas.
To fix that, you just have to go on Fox, because then they'll cut you off halfway through the first season, or maybe only let you do the first season. And then
change your name to Matt Groening, and you don't even have to worry about it anymore.
Well, sure, there's that too, but like they never had to figure out how to end Firefly because Fox figured it out, sadly. So that was sort of simple.
Still one of the largest crimes against television ever.
Well, I hope so. I mean, and in saying that, what I mean is that I hope that it was a crime, but my concern is that it might have been actually, because there's this rose-tinted glasses now to the Firefly series. Like, if it would have gone on for 8 seasons, it might have gotten really weird, and people would have been like, ugh, and it ended poorly. But because there's just this one distilled season of stuff that almost everybody seems to like, then we kind of put it up on this pedestal because it never got to keep going. So,
well, hold up, there's the movie Serenity, and it's strong. It's a really good movie. Right,
but I'm just saying, if they would have had to have made like 3 or 4 more seasons of that show, I wonder if it would have been would it have been more successful? Possibly, but on the other hand, maybe it would have crapped out eventually,
As far as I can tell, because I followed Joss Whedon for a long time, because I watched Buffy
and Angel,
and even Dollhouse, which got weird. But it always has to do with how directly involved Joss Whedon can actually be. Because you can see the weakest seasons in Buffy are when he's focusing on Angel, and the weakest seasons of both of those shows is when he's working on Firefly. Mm-hmm. And so basically it's just whenever he has to go work on something else and he has whatever his other team of writers in taking care of things, then, yeah, it goes to weird places. You have uninteresting character and story development. And then when he comes back, I still feel like season 5 of Angel is probably some of the best TV ever, because that was after Firefly fell apart and Buffy had already been done, or finished up, so he just had Angel left and he poured all his energy into that, and I thought it was a really good season. So it really depends on, it's like directly related to how much energy he can put into it.
And now I wonder if he's going to stick solely with movies, or if he's going to maybe head back into any kind of television. I know he was, from what I read, he was very glad to be done with the Avengers after Age of Ultron, because he's not in the contract for the next one whenever they make the next one.
No, so, I heard he got kicked around real bad. I mean,
well, yeah.
You think he'd be able to write his own ticket after how he pulled Avengers together, but apparently Avengers 2, he just had nothing but studio callers on him.
Well, from what I understand, that's kind of the way that Marvel works. Like, they have been, they kind of fell into this, and it got huge, and they're still really, really, really strongly in control of everything, and they... you have problems with these actors like not getting paid what they're supposed to. And I read this long article about how, like, even now their offices, I think, are like up above like a car dealership somewhere in LA, and they they have these red carpet type premieres, and like everybody has to bring their own chips or that kind of stuff. Like, they really don't spend any money on stuff, and it's like the guy who runs all of Marvel Entertainment, and I can't think of his name, but the movie division especially, that guy, he's a real miserly kind of guy, and wants to be in control of everything, and all the contracts have to be exactly, so that they have the upper hand, and it's interesting. Like, obviously the person who wrote it probably had kind of a slant himself, but it was interesting. And like I said, there were some tweets from Joss Whedon after Age of Ultron came out, and he's like, I am done. Thank you very much. Because he was kind of not wanting to be doing that anymore as much. So it'll be interesting to see what he does next too. I'd
be surprised if he went back to TV. He does the slow burn stories really well, and TV is really the only thing that gives you time. And with the way streaming services now, where you can just put a whole season out there all at once, it does seem like there's not a big echelon difference between TV and movies anymore.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at stuff like on Netflix, I mean, obviously, because it's Netflix, you can get away with more to some degree, swearing and some nudity and some things like that, which obviously you can't do on Fox or on NBC or anything like that. So I think that after the success of some of these, like House of Cards and Orange is the New Black and Daredevil, and now Jessica Jones is doing well, I mean, I think that you're going to see more and more stuff going there, and I think you're going to see some of these movie directors who want to do long form heading in that direction because they're not tied down as much as they are with the networks.
No, I agree. I think that's a smart move for them too, because I don't think Daredevil was even on that large a budget.
No,
so
I don't think so.
Popular directors could probably even self-finance that stuff.
Yeah.
Which is a little crazy to think about. Oh, let's see here. So right after Cloverfield, JJ Abrams did the first new Star Trek movie in 2009, and that was when he went to directing. So that was the second film he ever directed. So.
Yeah, I remember going to a fancy theater outside of town because we wanted to see it like in actual digital. It was before like the theater in town, the Megaplex or whatever we've got in town, they hadn't gone digital yet, so we were going to go, and so we got fancy seats, and it was like those kind of recliner type seats and everything, and you could buy a beer and stuff like that and everything, and that was a pretty good movie going experience, frankly, and I remember enjoying the movie quite a bit. I own that one on Blu-ray. I own the second one on Blu-ray. I know a lot of people don't like the second one as much, but I still like the second one quite a bit as well. I don't know.
Darkness. Yeah, that's when you talk like rage out.
Well, I mean, Cumberbatch really kind of makes the movie from that one.
Yeah. Oh, totally. But I still like. I mean, you get a little bit. Well, you get a little bit more Simon Pegg. I haven't seen the new. We were talking about it before. The new Mission Impossible, but at least from the trailers, it seems as Simon Pegg is having a bigger part in that movie series.
Oh yeah.
So that's cool.
Amazing.
So that's cool. I like that because Pegg and Frost, those two guys working together, I'll go see pretty much anything that they do together.
Edgar Wright's probably the strongest of the three of that tri group or whatever.
Was he in? Did he do Paul?
No, he didn't. He was off directing and helping write Scott Pilgrim.
Right.
And Paul was being written, and I love Scott Pilgrim far and way better than Paul.
I like, Scott Pilgrim's really, really good, but I still like Paul just fine, just because the interaction between those two guys. I would love to see if they could get Nick Frost apart in one of the Star Trek movies. That'd be sweet.
Sure. I mean, I have no idea who's in the cast for Star Trek Beyond, but you'll see it next year in our year sequel.
Well,
Idris Elba. Yeah, Idris Elba's in it.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, and then actually Simon Pegg is in Star Wars, the new one.
Yeah.
Star Wars? Oh,
yep.
Really?
He's in episode 7. I think he's like a background character. Like I saw like a behind the scenes shot of him, and he was like just taking off like the head on the creature that he was or whatever. I mean, he's like literally
I watched one preview and I was like,
I think he's in the background of like some sort of cantina type scene or something like that. But they were like, he's been such a big fan of the show for that they basically called him up and they're like, you can be, strange alien number 12 if you want. And then he was like, yeah, I'll be there, so.
Done.
Well, it's like, what's his name? Stephen Colbert has got like a 2-second role in one of the Hobbit movies.
Which one?
Not the first Hobbit movie. I think it's either the second or the third Hobbit movie. But there's just like literally like a 2 seconds where you see him, like he says like a word or two as like they're like panning across like a group of, and he's got like a weird nose and stuff going on or whatever. But yeah.
Oh really?
Yeah, they had him on the set and they gave him like one tiny like little line and stuff because he knows more about the Lord of the Rings lore than anybody who wrote it. I mean, it's like, yeah, he's crazy about that stuff.
Mm.
And then he had Smaug the dragon on his show.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Smaug.
He had Smaug on the show, so that was cool.
Would you make sure to say it in the weirdest way possible?
Smaug. It's like an 8-syllable word if you say it right.
Smaug.
Well, it doesn't sound flowery enough.
That's true.
What, Smag?
Mag. I don't think
Smooth.
Tolkien was from Boston.
I'm a dragon named Smag.
And I agree with Locke here on the chat. I'd happily kill my whole family to see the Red Letter Media guys in the Star Wars movie. Probably wouldn't kill my family, but... And in preparation for the new movies, or the new movie, I guess, of course I watched the original trilogy because they're actually good movies, but instead of watching the prequels, which would be unnecessary, I did rewatch the Red Letter Media 70-minute Star Wars reviews. Have either of you guys seen those?
No.
I've heard of them, but I've not seen them.
They are hilarious. They're so good. And Simon Pegg is actually part of why Red Letter Media even got into as much popularity as it did, because he found them and tweeted about them. But yeah, Red Letter Media, you get to watch the prequels that very thoroughly analyzed and very intelligently analyzed from the point of view of like this, I don't know, 60 or 70-year-old serial killer. And it's just bizarre and amazing. So good.
Well, put the link in the
Something.
in the
Does it let me? I don't know.
Sure.
Google changes their everything every month.
Can you put it up here, or maybe over here? I don't know.
Only if it's a link to another YouTube, because
I don't know
Google
if
doesn't
that's
want you reading their program. Stop pointing at the screen.
maybe.
Up there. Have you guys been using, this is not completely related at all, have you guys been using cards at all in your YouTube videos?
Negative.
No.
No, I've still been trying to look for good examples of how they're used.
The cards are sort of nice because they work in mobile as well. So, and they're very kind of unobtrusive. They just sort of like when they pop up, there's like a little thing up in the corner. It'll pop out and it'll be a link to something or whatever, and then it'll disappear, and there'll just be like a little eye up there, like in a circle, and then you know that that's where you can. And I've been kind of liking them mainly because, like I said, they work on mobile, whereas normal annotations don't.
Does it let you link to anything, or does it have to be another video within YouTube?
That's a good question. I think you can link. You can link to certain things, like I know you could link to like Kickstarter. There's certain URLs that they'll allow you to yeah. but not like just anything willy nilly, like some scary Russian, virus hub or something like that,
Virus. Okay, fair enough. But it would be nice if you could link to other things. You can't even link to your Facebook on YouTube videos without doing some weird workaround.
You should do a link to your own website, but you have to get it like verified first.
Yeah, you have to verify that you own it. And since you don't own Facebook, when you link to it, you can't link your Facebook.
Yeah, no, that's true.
But yes, I'll try that at some point. I'm having, I don't know. I just want Google videos to work.
Well, if you just search Red Letter Media on YouTube,
it's redlettermedia.com. It's just the website itself.
Oh, do they not have a YouTube channel?
They do as well, but...
I'm just saying our viewers could go do that if they wanted to. I mean, not now, because, we're talking.
Yeah, that's a link. Woohoo! That actually did work in the chat. I love that.
That's interesting.
What about in the description?
Can we change the description anymore? I bet probably not.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I only assume Miranda can do it because she's the author.
I'm the boss of everything.
The boss. Yeah, okay, yes, the boss of everything.
Yeah, no, I can. I mean... What would I say? Like, hey, here's all the weird stuff we're talking about this hour. I guess that's actually exactly what I would say.
Yeah, sure. We need a stenographer for the show is what we need.
Yeah.
So that
there is an awesome button in YouTube where you can check now to let other people contribute to subtitles.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just watching a video about that recently. Have you guys been working on any new stuff? Any wargamery stuff?
Wargamery stuff? Well, I'm always working on wargamery stuff.
Sure, certainly.
Every day.
Yeah.
No, I mean, as I was pointing out earlier, I was playing with my X-Wings from Bandai. Putting these kits together. These are really great kits. I recommend them for anybody who's a serious Star Wars nerd.
Oh my goodness.
But otherwise, no, I was putting together a Dr. Nick for my Steelhead army for my mercs.
Ooh. Nice.
Yeah, I want to give him a try.
Well, I'll be going to the Las Vegas Open in February, and I've been working on my Road to LVO series. And I don't know if you can tell now, but I've been sick all week, so I've been trying to get my voice to recover enough for my video. But I'm also trying to paint as many miniatures up as I can for the Las Vegas Open in February. Mm-hmm. And so I've been trying to do is make it look as impressive as I can before I shoot the video, which has had me kind of burned out, which is why I'm not painting right now because I'm done for now.
Yeah, I noticed none of us were working on anything. We're just all
we all just sort of gave up on that.
I was kind of organizing things a little bit, but that's about it. I've been working on. I bought the box. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Varangard, which is the new Age of Sigmar cavalry guys. I don't know if you can really see this or not, but they're big. I mean, they're not humongous, and I think that they're probably overpriced. But they're really super cool looking models, and I'm looking forward to painting them. So, but they're also, because it's Chaos and because it's Games Workshop, they are covered in spikes. So I don't know how many times in the last week I've gone to pick it up and I've been like, ow, because this model. Okay, so it's a dude on a horse with an axe and a shield. This is probably 40 different pieces.
Jeez.
I mean, there's the horse itself is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. There's at least 20 pieces just for the horse. This little
unnecessary too.
This little tongue, the little tongue in his mouth there is a separate piece from the two halves of his head when I put it together. I mean, it's an interesting kit, and it is for advanced modelers because I had to put the second one together with the help of pretty sturdy clamps, actually, because he would not go together very well. But that's mainly what I've been doing. That and building.
You know why they're so convoluted?
I built a bunch of goatmen too.
You know why the models are so convoluted?
No.
Please tell me.
It's so that they're not easily resin casted.
Yeah, I could see that, or just generally copied by the Chinese. I mean, there's a lot of that.
Yeah, no,
it
has to be injection molded. Mm-hmm. That process of going through the CAD and everything like that has to be injection mold plastic. Resin, like if you were to just do a 2-part resin mold of that, which would be the cheapest and easiest way to recast something, you're gonna have a wicked time doing it with.
Oh yeah.
Workshop parts.
But because there's been several companies I've seen people at the local shop who've got these Chinese recasts of certain things, but they're frequently already resin models to begin with, they're recasts of GW resins. But yeah, this is a very detailed character. His torso, I've just got it stuck on there with some poster putty right now because I'm going to paint the body part separately from the horse because I think it'll be easier. Yeah, that's basically that, and my 10 goatmen, beastmen over here, which are fun, and then I've got 2 entire Frostgrave warbands that I've built that I need to start painting. So I've been doing a lot of building and not a lot of painting lately, so I kind of need to flip that now and then start painting all the crap I built. So.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I have to give a thanks to old Age of Sigmar out there because at my game store I realized just a few weeks ago that Age of Sigmar single-handedly created an entire Malifaux meta here in Albuquerque from 15 people who played fantasy, just leaving and changing games to Malifaux.
In the Midwest, they all went to.
I'm in the Southwest.
No, but here.
Surprisingly different group. Oh, where you are?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, in the Midwest, where I am, they all went to Infinity.
Oh, okay.
Which is just so crazy. It's just so crazy that all these people who'd been playing fantasy for so long, when fantasy stopped and Age of Sigmar popped up, they just all I know a bunch of them, and I listen to podcasts by guys and all this stuff, and they all just flipped over. I mean, Infinity and Warhammer Fantasy could not be two further apart things. You know what I mean? It's crazy, Japanese animation style sci-fi versus fantasy elves and dwarves and stuff. Over on the elves and dwarves side, you need to have 300 guys in your army, and over here, you need to have 8. You know what I mean? And it's very interesting how many of them just all at once just. There's a tournament in Wisconsin called Wapaka. It's in the city of Wapaka, but it's called Wapaka, like the the orcs with the Wa. And It used to be a fantasy tournament, and it used to have 100 people come to it. People would come from overseas to come to the little town of Waupaca, Wisconsin, to go to this tournament. And now this year, they have a little bit of everything, and they're kind of expanding into a couple different things. But the Infinity tournament sold out first. Like, that was the first thing that sold out when they opened it up back in fall. So. Yeah, it's interesting, and it's interesting to hear that in where you live, Miranda, everybody switched over to Malifaux. You know, I mean, there's a lot of that. Like, a lot of people did that. I'm interested in Age of Sigmar just because I was always interested in fantasy, but I didn't want to build and paint all those guys. So now, plus I didn't, like, now I can build and paint some guys, and I can kind of mix and match. Like, my current army for Age of Sigmar is going to be Warriors of Chaos plus a bunch of Nurgle guys plus Beastmen, and they can all be in the same army because they all have the Chaos like keyword in their description, so they can technically play together, which is kind of an interesting concept. So I can kind of mess around and do that stuff and play with that, and it's not a super difficult game, so it's got a little bit of an easier learning curve. So I'm hoping to be playing with some people sometime in 2016.
Okay, nice.
Playing with people?
Well, I mean, because like right now I'm just painting and building and stuff like that.
Right.
I hope to have my force ready to go and then playing with actual people as opposed to just sitting here in my basement and looking at them all the time. I hope to be doing that. I mean, I'm also going to be doing Frostgrave because I really like Frostgrave, and I really like this other skirmish game called This Is Not a Test, which is kind of a post-apocalyptic. It's basically like Fallout the video game, except it's a tabletop war game.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
So both of those I'm going to be playing a lot more in 2016, and I'm actually going to do battle reports, bat reps probably for both of those for Frostgrave. And Frostgrave is basically a new version of Mordheim without all of the screw-ups that Mordheim had. So I don't know if you're familiar with Mordheim from Games Workshop, but it's a cool version of Mordheim in my opinion.
No, I've been looking at it. I haven't bought the book yet, though. They had it at the game store for a while, and then it sold out, and they haven't been able to get a new copy, I guess. So.
It's a hardcover. It's all full color. It's like $25. It's like a really reasonable price. So it's a cool game. Frostgrave is really neat, and like I said, it reminds me a lot of Mordheim, but it is better in my opinion. So.
We totally just switched topics, gaming again.
Well, it's a cinematic Wargamers. So it's.
How are we supposed to convince people we have other hobbies? We do this, Adam.
Well, that's what we did for the first 3/4 of the talk. Are either of you going to Adepticon? Speaking of conventions,
I'm planning on it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you, Miranda, you think you guys are going?
Planning on it. Really want to. Just
Okay.
gotta make it happen.
Well, we could maybe do a live show while we're there, or something like that, or not a live, but like an in-person show. Probably not live because the internet's kind of crappy in the hotel, frankly.
Yeah.
But we could do something like that because I'm planning on being there too. I'm probably closest. I'm only about 3 hours away by car, so.
Yeah, I'm like
19.
Yeah.
8-hour drive.
Yeah.
And I either was gonna probably, if I'm going, I'm probably gonna end up going with Owen and Jay probably.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah.
Nice.
I saw Jay there last year, and I saw Jay at Gen Con too. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jay's a lot of fun, but I don't know if I can handle 8 hours in a car with him. I might.
I don't know if I can handle 8 hours in a car in general.
Yeah.
It's miserable, I can tell you. I've done
Yeah, that night when you told me
horrible.
that it was 19 hours for you to get, I was just like, ugh, that's. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the benefits of being that close and driving with me and another friend is then I can fill the rest of my car with equipment. Like, so I bring tons of stuff for shooting and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, that's where we've typically driven to, just to carry all the equipment and miniatures.
Yeah, there's that too. That's helpful.
And it's nice to have a car when you get there, so you can kind of get around town or give people rides or whatever.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, the new location doesn't have a lot of restaurants nearby, so if you do want to go someplace else, you do kind of need to drive.
You got a
I
cabin?
forgot they changed venues.
What's that?
I forgot they had changed venues.
Yeah, the new venue is really big, and it's pretty nice, and that's cool, but I do miss the old venue just because I loved the hotel we used to get across the parking lot. That was it was this crazy like suites building, and you would go there, and like each place had a full-blown kitchen. Like there was a dishwasher and like a stove and like a giant, like a big fridge and the whole deal. And so it was great. We had that party 2 years ago. That was a lot of fun. So
that was really fun.
Yeah.
I like the carousing around with other people who do YouTube or just gaming in general. When you go to those conventions, it gets kind of lonely after a while, especially when you don't leave your house.
Yeah. No, definitely. Adepticon's my favorite, so I'm always looking forward to it every year.
I've personally have never been to a whole lot of cons. It wasn't until I moved down to Southern Ontario that I even went to Comic-Con a few years back, and that was the first big con I've ever gone to. But like as far as these big wargaming cons, like Adepticon, I've always wanted to go to. Ever since even when they were still doing the Art Boys tournaments and stuff like that. Because I wanted to do. One year I was going to attend the Art Boys, and never got around to getting it happening, and just. Always ends up usually these kind of circumstances come up, or you don't have the cash right away, or it's usually just something that ends up coming up, and it's just
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons. I mean, I've been going to Gen Con for years too, but I'm not probably going to be going back anytime soon because it's gotten too big, and it's gotten. I mean, for me, it's about 6.5 hour drive, which is not the end of the world, but they keep raising the price, which again, okay. But now it's 63,000 people there, Oh, yeah. I mean, they doubled their attendance in 5 years. From 2010 till last year, they doubled their attendance, which is crazy. And so it's just one of those situations where it's like the difference between going to a fishing convention and going to like a trout fishing convention. When you're a trout fisherman, you know what I mean? When you go to Gen Con, like you feel surrounded by gamers, but this guy plays D&D only, and this guy plays Magic, and this guy's really. But when you go to Adepticon, everybody there plays tabletop wargaming. That's the whole thing. So when you were talking before.
Even if they haven't played your game, they know what you're talking about.
Exactly. They probably paint stuff. They build stuff. You've got that same kind of thing. You were talking about the carousing before. You see a lot of the same people over again. And plus, it's not so huge. It's 3,000 people, I think, in comparison.
It was 4,000 last year. But,
I could maybe, but it's certainly not 60,000. So yeah, that's a big benefit. Yes. I'm actually giving 2 seminars this year at Adepticon.
Oh yeah, on what?
I'm giving 2 seminars about YouTube channels, like how to make a YouTube channel and how to brand a YouTube channel and stuff like that. So
cool.
We'll give it a try and see how it works out. So I'm looking forward to it.
Super awesome. I don't know that we're going to finish this list on JJ Abrams. I think we should probably start winding it down. I got to get ready to get to the theater myself.
That's true. You got to stand in line and put on your Wookiee costume.
Well, I do. I'm still debating whether or not I'll actually get in costume because it does sound really fun. But the theater we went to, we reserved seats, so it's a reserved seat now. I don't have to worry about wrestling or mosh pitting my way into the theater.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mosh pit?
No. Oh. I once had to get pulled out of a mosh pit by staff attendants because I was so scared. I was super nerdy little wimpy kid. So.
I thought maybe you're throwing elbows and doing spinning roundhouse kicks and stuff like that.
No, but I know lots of girls that are much smaller than me who do it handle it just fine and crowd surf. I'm like, no. Apparently, just an old lady inside about that. It just terrifies me.
In my youth, I used to come out of those things all the time, bloody nose and.
Yeah, I remember in college, there was a guy. I don't know if he was trying to impress me or whatever, but he was showing me this tooth that he lost from the mosh pit. I'm like,
yeah, no, never went not that far. Bloody nose is usually the case. That's about it. But you're usually so polluted anyway that it doesn't really bother you. And
yeah, you go to concerts and people are spilling beer or passing out in front of you or whatever.
Yeah.
Nerd conventions are actually a lot more fun whenever I think about regular concerts.
Yeah, there's never been a mosh pit at Adepticon that I remember. So
no.
That's if I go,
I'm starting one. There has been.
Well, but no, to be fair, at Gen Con, there's nearly the first day on Thursday when it opens up. When I worked for Piece of War, I had a press pass to be inside the dealer area when the first doors opened at 10 a.m. or whatever. And I thought I was possibly going to be killed. I mean, because it was one of those situations where I'm like, oh, I'm going to stand here and I'm going to have a good shot of the doors opening and just the masses just washing in and everything like that. And then about halfway through that, I'm like, this is maybe a miscalculation. I should have not necessarily stood here, because everyone's trying to get to like whatever, like to the privateer press booth so they can stand in line to buy whatever the convention specials, all that. Yeah. But yeah, so when they started coming, I was like, oh, maybe I've made a terrible miscalculation. Yeah, so that was that kind of stuff happens, but you don't see that particularly at Adepticon, which is another reason why I enjoy it.
That's fair.
The thing is, too, with the Adepticon, if I do go this year, I'm going to have to bring my Titan, because I think they still have the big Titan battle there, where like
yeah, they do.
Titans, so.
What Titan do you have, Kris?
I have a Phantom Titan this year.
Big Unc and Eldar?
Yeah. Let's see, he's up there.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I thought you were talking of like a Warlord Titan or something, which has always been my dream. I think that's probably my favorite model.
An Eldar Phantom Titan kicks the pants of a Warlord Titan.
What?
Pants.
I feel like this needs to be proven.
It has been proven. I've proven it many times.
Well, I think you need to prove it.
My Phantom Titan has taken out 2 Warlords in a single game.
2 Warlord Titan, 2,500 point Warlord Titans? Are you serious?
Totally serious.
I don't believe you for 2 seconds.
Eldar are pretty OP. I'm just saying.
Okay, as the joke goes, Eldar bring all the D.
It's true.
And so that makes the big difference. Is Eldar bring lots and lots of D.
Lots of D weapons.
So wrong. No.
Destroyer.
Destroyer weapons. D weapons.
Anyway,
that's it's not a great joke, but it's a joke.
I didn't say this was a comedy show. This was...
I'm just putting all my goat men on my laptop so they can protect it. I am missing a goat man.
First world problems.
I know. Where do you go? I should have 10. I have... Oh, no, I do have 10. I just can't count. Never mind.
No, I've got 11.
Right, so anyway.
Okay, so JJ Abrams, do we love JJ?
I have total optimism for his stuff. I think that he at least appreciates fans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I'm very interested to see, because he talked quite a bit about, in the making of Star Wars, the new movie, he talked quite a bit about how they wanted to do as many practical effects as possible and so much in camera, and they didn't want to do all the CG. And I'm very interested to see that kind of come to fruition. You know, a lot of people complained about Jar Jar, complained about the new Yoda because he was all CG, you know, that kind of stuff.
Well,
it's interesting to see. What's that?
Oh, so there's a lot of legitimate complaints about it because it takes you out.
Yeah, in some situations, yeah, and I'm going to be interested to see what the kind of response is to the non-CG in a lot of these things, you know, and to see how that works out.
I think it's going to have the same flavor as the originals.
Yeah.
I think and the way he's going to shoot it, the way you know, like the camera angles, and because I mean you can already see it in the previews that I mean it does have a lot of like Abrams feeling to it, but it also still has that early Star Wars feeling to it as well. I
mean, I think that, like, you know, people sit down and look at, like, they talk about, oh, you know, Yoda was so much better when he was a puppet, but when you actually go back and watch those movies, he's real.
I just did that today.
I know, but he's
totally convincing.
He's real puppety. You know what I mean? It's just like he's talking.
Charming though.
He's charming, but he's talking and his mouth is barely moving much, you know. And so yeah, I don't know.
I still think they did a really good job. You see him like crawling up on Luke's camp area and like rummaging through his stuff. Like,
they did, and I think that going complete CG in the new movies was maybe the wrong decision, and I would have liked to have seen, you know, how many people are talking all the time about in the new Mad Max about how, like, oh, well, they didn't do much CG, so that's why it looks so much better. Well, there was tons. It's just that it was always at the edges. It was always like stuff that you didn't have to pay too much attention to. The cars weren't
actually enhance, not be the effect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
it's
I think
Jackie
that
Chan's approach to the way he does movies too, with wire effects. They only enhance what he's already doing. And
I think that if they were to do like some sort of characters and then enhance with a CG. You've got this crazy alien and they've enhanced his face or made his eyes move, where maybe really making his eyes move wouldn't work, but if they add that in, that kind of stuff, I think, rather than having a completely CG character, I think that kind of stuff really could help. So it'll be interesting to see how those effects work.
Yeah, I agree. I'll be interested. The other thing I wonder about with JJ Abrams, if he's got a bit of a safety net because the fans want to like the next Star Wars movie so much.
Oh yeah,
I think
for people to just love it.
I think he's the first fan though.
Okay.
I think because he's the one, like, he's making that movie that he wanted to see done when he was a kid, and I think that's what we're gonna get.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was done when he was a kid. He already saw it. Anyway, yes, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't think this one. I don't think he'll disappoint. Is it gonna be mind blowing or anything like that?
Hard to say. You put those movies on enough of a pedestal. I don't think anything can.
Right, exactly. I don't think so. I don't think I'm gonna be blown away by it. I don't think I mean, we might get a big reveal as far as what is going to be coming for the next, the other two movies. That'll get us really excited about those next movies coming out. So.
And all of us, honestly, being of a certain age or close enough to a certain age, we kind of poo-poo the episodes 1, 2, and 3. But there's a lot of little kids who've watched those movies over and over and over and over again on DVD or whatever, who I bet are going to maybe, to some degree, feel a lot more positive towards those movies than we do now. And
Yep.
I think that could maybe then also drive once they get, because at this point now, like a lot of the kids who were younger and watching those movies over and over like kids do are now going to see episode 7. You know what I mean? So they might even think that the 1, 2, and 3 are a little cooler than 4, 5, and 6 because 4, 5, and 6 are very different in comparison and not to what they're used to. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, I haven't heard much in the way of backlash, so hopefully it'll go well. But
and I like that little BB-8 droid. He's just too adorable.
Oh my goodness!
I was astounded that was a practical effect. Originally I just assumed it was CG, but then when they did that thing at in Florida at the celebration or whatever, and they had all the people come out on stage, they had the actors out on stage, and then BB-8 rolled out on stage, and I was like, wait, that's not CG? How the hell did you even do that? And yeah, so that's pretty impressive, I have to admit.
They just hired FAO Shorts to make the toy.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I'm going to go find out now. So thank you guys for joining me. Do you have any closing thoughts for our audience before we leave?
I would like to see JJ Abrams go over to Netflix. I'd like to see what he could do in that medium, frankly. I don't know with what, but I'd like to see something happen like that.
Just take on a superhero.
Doesn't it have to
be Marvel or DC?
No, exactly. It could be he'd be his own thing, whatever he wants to make up. I think he could do it. He's getting to the point where he's got to be able to write his own check or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So I think the next thing that JJ Abrams does is it's going to be either something like Close Encounters, or he's going to do his own thing on Indiana Jones.
They're making a 5th one of those, aren't they?
There was, but who knows?
No, I think there was going to be a 5th Indiana Jones, and it was still going to have what's his name in it, Harrison Ford. But yeah. Yeah,
as long as they can still, keep his legs moving, they'll keep working up.
Oh.
Yeah, he's
Keith Richards.
He's been trying to take himself out. It seems like after that airplane crash. I mean, they got to let him. I don't know, man. They got to keep him healthy.
I mean, I love Harrison Ford.
I'll see what Harrison Ford can.
Yeah, it's true.
All right. Well, on that note, gentlemen, I will bid you good night. Thank you to everybody who came to watch the show tonight. I always want to hear your comments, which I guess will only be available after the stream is done. And thank you for everybody who participated in the chat. So we'll see you next time, probably in about a month. And I think we'll just start off by talking about whatever we've seen between now and the next time we do a hangout, and that'll be announced.
And somebody wanted me to say something about pen is? What's pen is? Pen is? What's pen is? Is that like Pez?
Could be like Pez. It's maybe Canadian Pez.
Canadian Pez. Oh, I like my Canadian Pez. All right, before we go completely off the...
Bye, everybody.